Studying Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 7, entitled Further Inquiries by Vidura, text 38. Yes, we're in text 38. It's March 30th, 2025. Purushasya cha samstanam svarupam ba parasya cha gyanam cha nigamam yat tad guru shishya prayojanam purushasya cha samstanam svarupam va parasya cha gyanam cha nigamam yat tad guru shishya prayojanam purushasya cha samstanam svarupam va parasya cha gyanam cha nigamam yat tad guru shishya prayojanam purushasya cha samstanam svarupam va parasya cha gyanam cha nigamam yat tad guru shishya prayojanam purushasya cha samstanam
Svarupam va parasya cha
svarupam va parasya cha
janam cha nagyamam yatad
gyanam cha nigamam yat tad
guru shisha prayojanam.
guru shishya prayojanam. We're studying Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 7, text 38.
Purushasya cha samstanam
Purushasya cha samstanam
Varupam va parasya cha
varupam va parasya cha
Gyanam janaigamam yatat
yanam cha nigamam yat tad
Guru shishya prayojanam.
guru shishya prayojanam. Purushasya,
Ushasya
of the living entity.
of the living entity.
Cha,
Cha
also.
also.
Samstanam,
Samstanam
existence.
existence.
Svarupam,
Sarvupam
identity.
identity.
Va,
Va
either.
or
Parasya,
parasya
of the supreme.
of the supreme.
Cha,
Cha
also.
also.
Jnanam,
Jnanam
knowledge.
knowledge.
Cha, also.
Also.
Nigamam,
Nigamam
in the matter of the Upanishads.
in the matter of the Upanishads.
Yat,
That
tat,
taught
the same.
guru
Spiritual master. Shishya, disciple. Prayojanam, necessity. Translation. What are the truths regarding the living entities and the Supreme Personality of Godhead? What are their identities? What are the specific values in the knowledge of the Vedas? What are the specific values in the knowledge in the Vedas? And what are the necessities for the spiritual master and his disciples? Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. The living entities are constitutionally servitors of the Lord who can accept all kinds of service from anyone. It is clearly declared, Bhagavad Gita chapter 5, text 29, that the Lord is the supreme enjoyer of the benefits of all sacrifices and penances, the proprietor of all that is manifested, and the friend of all living entities. That is his real identity. Therefore, when the living entity accepts the supreme proprietorship of the Lord and acts in that attitude, he resumes his real identity. In order to elevate the living entity to this standard of knowledge, there is the necessity of spiritual association. The bona fide spiritual master desires that his disciples know the process of rendering transcendental service to the Lord. And the disciples also know that they have to learn about the eternal relationship between God and the living entity from a self-realized soul. To disseminate transcendental knowledge, one must retire from mundane activities on the strength of enlightenment in knowledge in terms of Vedic wisdom. That is the sum and substance of all the questions in this verse. Okay. Again, at Mirandasya Ginanjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svayam Upakadamayam Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Tapadakamalam Sri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Saganaragnatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvetam Savadutam Purijana Sahitan Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Sri Vishakan Vitamscha. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gorange Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Panchakalpatu Yubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhyevacha Patitanan Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadara Sri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Sarasvati Devi Gavani Pacharini Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha Tarini Srimad Bhagavatam Canto 3 Chapter 7 Text 38 Purushasya cha samstanam Svarupam va parasya cha Ganam janagamam yatad Guru Shishya Prayojanam. What are the truths regarding the living entities and the Supreme Personality of Godhead? What are their identities? What are the specific values in the knowledge in the Vedas? And what are the necessities for the spiritual master and his disciples? Hare Krishna. So this chapter is entitled Further Inquiries by Vidura. And so the whole chapter is questions by Vidura to Maitreya. And so the whole chapter is these questions. This one verse, I could see has like at least 7 questions in that one verse. And okay, so it's very rich, very full. I think Ananditi quoted yesterday, Munaya Saruprishtoham Bhavat Bir Lokamangalam Yat Krita Krishna Samprashno Yenatmasu Prasidati. Right at the beginning of Bhagavatam, the first chapter is entitled Questions by the Sages. And Sutta Goswami, before responding to the questions for the next 12 cantos, he's in ecstasy. These questions are glorious because they relate to self-realization, they relate to Lord Krishna, and thus they're for the benefit of everyone. Only questions of this sort can completely satisfy the self. Okay, then at the very end of the first canto, 19th chapter of the first canto, Shukadeva Goswami appears. And he appears, we're not going to go into that whole story now, but I encourage everyone to read the Bhagavatam closely and become very familiar with all these pastimes. And then at the beginning of the second canto, because Maharaj Parikshit at the end of the first canto asked these wonderful questions for spiritual realization, what to do at the time of death, what's the responsibility of a spiritual being having human experience. So right at the beginning of the second canto, the first verse, Varyanisha Ishate Prasna, Shukadeva Goswami, your questions give me such, I'm so fortunate to get to respond to these questions. So we see this throughout the Bhagavatam, questions and responses, questions that are distinctively human, means human, questions that are not about the essential animal, because as we say in some of our seminars often, right, all living entities are always asking questions. We can hear the birds chirping. They're asking questions. I don't hear a question mark. Of course they're asking questions. Squirrels are asking questions. The blades of grass are asking questions. Where's a drop of water? Where's a mate? Whereas a place to protect from this kitty cat who's wandering and wants to pounce on me. Questions around eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. Okay, so in the human form, we get to also do that. But the human form, kamasya nendriya pritir labo jivete yavate jivasya tattva jigyasa notuyasya karma bi. Sutta Goswami describes that, life's desire should never be directed towards sense gratification. Human life is meant for inquiry into the absolute truth. Questions like this, and self-preservation. What? So sure, we want to keep the body and soul together, keep the car in good shape, sure. But it's as much as possible towards 100% for as spiritual beings in the human form. We're endeavoring the actual purpose is questions of this quality of the sages of Namashavanya, Maharaj Parikshit at the banks of the Ganges, Vidura asking mature questions that relate to distinctions. Just in we have a coach training, in our recent coach training this past Thursday. Well, in recent weeks, it was about, the theme has been, whether in coaching, facilitation, theme has been about distinctions, knowledge, intelligence, to the extent of our capacity to make fine and subtle distinctions, we're powerful in any area, whether it's cooking or sports or carpentry or in any area. To the extent of our power to make fine distinctions, then we're potent, then we're powerful. So that's a theme here, and so that's most true. Bhagavatam begins, Dharma Bojita Kortavachara Parmoni Matsaranam Zatam Vejam Vastu Shivatam Tapochan Mulanam Srimad Bhagavate Mahamuni Kritikim Vaparishva Sajo Vida Votite Chakriti Bishu Shushabis Takshana. The highest truth is reality distinguished from illusion for the welfare of all. So distinctions, okay, starting in ourself. Where am I being genuine? Where am I being deceptive? Yeah, what's right, okay. So Vidura is asking, what are the truths regarding the living entities and the Supreme Personality of Godhead? All right, so some basic distinctions, vital distinctions that it really gets to the essence of spiritual life, the essence of Krishna consciousness. So there's matter, right? In many of our programs, we'll imagine you're looking at a photo of yourself when you were 5 years old, right? Okay, so we're just borrowing in our own words what Prabhupada does again and again, okay? Prabhupada does it again and again. Yeah, there's one, he's in some school in the Western world, maybe it's United States, maybe it's Australia, and he calls, this recording is available and the transcript's available, and he calls up a student. I don't know if they're like 10 years old or 12 or something. And Paul says, okay, point to your arm, point to your arm, point to your head, point to your leg. And the students are like, they're not like 2 years old. So like, this isn't a hard quiz, like that. Okay, point to your chest, point to your knee. And Prabhupada goes, and the Prabhupada says, point to yourself. And then, okay, so Prabhupada, and then he'd take a quiz and say, other than that, he created an experiential process. Of course, every association with Srila Prabhupada is a transcendental experiential process. Okay. So Prabhupada, so you're not, so you're pointing to your finger, but you're not the finger. You're pointing to your head. You're not the head. But when he asks, point to yourself, was somewhere in the chat. But so the actual self is not the arm or the leg, the actual self. It's in the region of the heart. It's in the region of the heart. This is described. Sarvasya Vidisanivisto. Krishna says, I'm situated in the soul of the soul, the heart of all living entities. So there's matter, and then there's the spirit, that non-material entity that goes on. Dihinosmi mitadehe komaram yovanamjara tatadehantara praptir diras tachadamuyati. As the embodied soul continually passes from childhood to youth to old age, the soul similarly passes into another body at the time of death. The self-realized soul is not bewildered by such a change. Not bewildered, why? Because the self-realized soul is making distinctions. Yeah, oh, I'm not the body, I'm not the 2-year-old body, I'm not the 5-year-old body, I'm not the hair, right? I'm not the foot or the hand. Oh, I'm that non-material entity that passes through these different bodies. So that's a distinction. Now there's infinitely finer distinctions. Right? There's the car analogy. We're not the car, we're the driver. More nuanced. We're not the hardware of the computer. We're not the software either. So that gets into we're the operator of the computer. So there are more distinctions: hardware, software, operator. Software. Actually, right now in our Bhagavad Gita study, we're in chapter 3. And the penultimate verse of chapter 3, Indriyani pranya or Indriyabhya pramana manasas tu parabude yo bude paritas tusa. Krishna describes distinctions. Okay, so there's dull matter, then there's the senses, which are more subtle, still material. Okay, that there's the hardware. Okay, but then there's subtlement, then there's the mind, which is more subtle than gross matter. More subtle in the mind is the intellect, but it's still material. More subtle in that is the ahankara, false ego. But then there's the soul. Okay, more subtle. Then there's the soul. So there's, okay, the French philosopher Descartes, if we go through his meditations, first discourses, he he goes through a process. He understands, oh yeah, I'm not this body. I think, therefore I am. It seems he wasn't quite getting that he's not the software. That's what it seems he got. I'm not the hardware. Didn't quite get the distinction between the soul and the software, the mind, intellect. So many fine distinctions. So just in that one verse I just quoted from Bhagavad Gita about those distinctions, yeah, there's more profound, accurate psychology there than in like a whole library of psychology in the university. I say that with full conviction. I'm allowed to say it. I have degrees in these things, so I'm allowed to say that. Okay, so then there's more distinct. So Vidura, what are the truths? What are the distinctions regarding the living entities and the Supreme Personality of Godhead? So gross matter, subtle matter, spirit, soul. But then we can go. Actually, I knew I would be. Yesterday night, I thought, yeah, I'll read from Bhagavatam. So I saw this verse, and it reminded me of Canto 2, Chapter 2, Text 35. And there's an amazing purport there. The whole Chapter 2 of Canto 2, it's about the super soul. It's about Krishna's expansion of the super soul in every atom and in the heart of all living entities. Andantarasta Paramanam Chaturastam. And Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Ishvara Sarvabhutanam Videshe Arjuna Tishtati Brahmayan Sarvabhutani Yantrabhutani Maya. Krishna says, I'm in Videshe, I'm in the heart, I'm in the heart of all living entities, and I direct their wanderings according to how they've situated themselves on the machine made of material energy, Yantra Rudani Maya, the machine made of Maya. Okay. So, so we've understood by basic logic and that purport 2235 Bhagavatam, probably a brilliant purport, how by logic, well, he's just following up on Shukadeva Goswami's brilliant responses to Maharaj Pariksit, how by logic we can understand we're not the body, we're a non-material entity, and by logic we can understand, but there must be another entity, as Krishna says at the beginning of the 13th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Kshetragyam chapimam vidi sarva kshetreshu bharata kshetragyayorganam yatad ganam matam mama. Krishna says, in this body, there's two persons. There's two spiritual persons. There's the soul and the super soul. The soul and the super soul. Towards the end of the 10th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna said, Yad yad vibhutimat sattvam shrimad urjitam evava tatad evava gachatvam mamatesham sambhava. Krishna has just described dozens of ways for Arjuna to realize God in nature. Wonderful. And then Krishna says, and know, Arjuna, that all these beautiful, mighty, and glorious creations spring from but a spark of my splendor. Yes, ateva baunaitena kim gatena tavarjuna vistabhyam idam kritsnam ekam sena stito jaga. And then Krishna says, and so what need is there for all this detailed knowledge with just a spark of a fragment of myself? I pervade and support this entire universe. So that fragment of just a fragment of an expansion of Krishna. And Nandini was sharing yesterday the different Vishnu forms, and there's this kind of complex progression. So that's the super soul. That's the super soul in our heart and in the heart of all living entities. So when we say like the supreme facilitator, in a sense it's not Krishna. It's an expansion of an expansion. Krishna's expansion is Balaram. Balaram's expansion is the chapter of Vyuha, the Vasudeva, Prajumani, we were saying their expansion is Narayan. Okay. So the supreme facilitator, so because we can understand, I'm not the body. I'm that conscious entity that inhabits the body. Okay. At the same time, we can see that matter doesn't move unless a conscious entity moves it. Okay. It's like that chair there. Chairs, I think we mentioned this in the recent Gita course a week ago. Yeah, the chairs, and it doesn't have a will. I want to be in that room over there. Oh, I wish I could come closer to hear the Bhagavatam. The chair has no will, it's no conscious, it's in that, but the chair will move if the conscious entity moves it. Okay, now we can see that we got all this dead, we're in this body made of dead matter, but it's moving. Now I can say, I'm moving it, but that's only in a very gross sense. Look, I used my hand to pick up the watch. But just like, okay, right now, there's so many digestive juices happening, and there's blood flowing through corpuscles in our bodies. What to speak of now? When we're sleeping, our heart's beating, and I know I studied a little physiology in high school back 50 years ago, and there were 10 systems, right? Where there's the pulmonary system and the cardiovascular and the digestive system and the circulatory system. And when we're completely sleeping, it's all happening. So like I say, I'm doing it. Yeah. Like I'm moving the sun and the moon. I'm not doing it. So there must be another living entity in there. That's the super soul. Keeping things going all the time. That's the super soul. And then Prabhupada goes further in that 2.235 purport. I'll mention, because like, I mean, in addition to my regular reading, all of Prabhupada's books, and, many times over the 45 years, past 45 years, that's a verse I go back to regularly. And when I read it last night, I got completely fresh realization. Like, it was one of those things like, that wasn't there the last 42 times I read it like that. So for me, it was just a fresh experience. How Srila Prabhupada's books, that's spiritual literature, ever fresh realization. And so then Prabhupada, he goes further, and we can see, so like, okay, so the supreme facilitator, who is the one, controlling all the laws that move the sun and the moon and the corpuscles and the digestive system and all the neurons in the brain. Like, I'm not doing that, right? Okay, so that's the supreme facilitator. The supreme facilitator facilitates our desires through the material or spiritual energies, depending on what's our desires, to the extent that our desires are material or spiritual. And Prabhupada makes a point like, so this is like a personality far greater than us. We start each class, the Bhagavatam begins, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So Vasudev, oh my Lord, Sri Krishna, son of Vasudeva, all-pervading personality of God. Vasudev means an all-pervading person. So that's beyond our material conception. Because a person, I'm a person, I'm here. I'm not there. You're a person, you're there. You're not over there. A person's in one location. So Vasudeva, Krishna is completely present in full personhood in each atom and in Goloka Vrindavan and in the hearts of all living entities and in his expansions and incarnations, etc., etc. Okay. So Prabhupada says this is like a great person beyond we can conceive. So it's not like this great person, the only thing he has to do is to facilitate our desires. I mean, that's something. He does with the spark of a spark of a spark. So it means, there must be, yeah, just like, yeah, yeah. So it makes logical sense that this great personality, who's the source of everything and facilitating everything, has his own enjoyment. Okay, so that's Krishna and Goloka Vrindavan, and it gets into the Vaikuntha planets. So distinctions, powerful distinctions, gross matter, subtle matter, spirit, soul, super soul, Bhagavan, Supreme Personality of Godhead. And then another aspect of the questions here, and this relates to some of us were here on Friday morning. We discussed, here Vidura is asking, what are the necessities for the spiritual master and his disciples? So that's somewhat related to the question we led on Friday. And then on Friday we were in text 36. Oh, best among the Brahmins, those who are spiritual masters are very kind to the needy. They are always kind to their followers, disciples, and sons. And without being asked by them, the spiritual master describes all that is knowledge. And today's verse, what are the specific values in the knowledge in the Vedas, and what are the necessities for the spiritual master and his disciples? Yes, so essential, essential. Lord Chaitanya speaking to Srila Ramananda Roy in chapter 8 of the Madhya Lila of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, because Ramananda Roy felt uncomfortable that Lord Chaitanya was taking the role of student and kind of putting him in the role of teacher. Well, one thing is Lord Chaitanya is God himself, but apart from that, Lord Chaitanya is a sannyasi. Ramananda Roy was a householder. Lord Chaitanya was a Brahmin. Ramananda Roy was a Sudra in politics. And so he said, I don't know, I'm not qualified. And the Lord Chaitanya says, keep every Kripanasi Sudra Kini Nyaya. Ye Krishna Tattvaveda Se Gurai. He says, qualification of a spiritual master is not, a true spiritual master is not one who's in this ashram or this varna or this position in society, one who's realized in the science of Krishna. Ye Krishna Tattvaveda Se Gurai. And he says, oh, that's you. So Ramananda Roy could see Lord Chaitanya wanted to do the service of responding to it. And it's quite fascinating discussion between the two of them that Prabhupada references a lot. And so to be expertly realized in the subtleties of the science of Krishna, and like that, that's the essential quality. And for the disciple, what are the necessities for the disciple, the sincerely aspiring disciple of a bona fide spiritual master like Srila Prabhupada, is to serve. Tadviti pranipatena paripashnena seva upadekshanti tekinam ganinas tattvadarshina. So Krishna says, just try to realize, just try to understand the truth by approaching a bona fide spiritual master. So approach, inquire from him submissively, sincere inquiries, not cynical inquiries, sincere inquiries, and serve. Tatviti Pranipati Paripashana Seva and serve. The self-realized soul will impart knowledge to you because he has seen the truth. So through service, through bhakti, we get diksha. That's the essence of the process of diksha. That we qualify ourselves to receive divigyan vide prokashito. We qualify ourselves to receive transformational, transcendental knowledge from the pure devotee, spiritual master. We're talking about Srila Prabhupada in our instance. We qualify ourselves by humbly serving, and our service includes morning Bhagavatam discussion. That's part of our service, and so so accept, follow, serve Srila Prabhupada, and then we get diksha. Prabhupada says the essence of the process of diksha is divya gyan, transformational trans. We sing, you fill our hearts with transcendental knowledge. It's the essence of the process of diksha. And on Friday, we talked a bit more about that, and we expressed that. So, like, yeah, well, it's described in the Upanishads. This verse mentions the Upanishads. Nigamam, in the matter of the Upanishad, means to come closer. In many respects, the Upanishads highlight the non-personal, the impersonal aspect of the Brahma, of the Supreme, of the Supreme, the Brahma Gyoti, the Brahman, and that's like the oneness aspect. And so that's there in the Vedas. There are aphorisms like Tat Tvam Asi, you are that. As an example, we can understand something like, yeah, because there is a sense in which we're one with the Supreme, one with God. The example given by Srila Prabhupada a lot, it's like we can say the sun rays are one with the sun. Here it is, it's about 8:30 a.m. in the morning. So we can say the sun's coming into David Wolf's home. It's true, but when we say that, we're not saying that the sun globe is in David Wolf's home. So the sun globe's actually 1.4 million times the volume of the Earth planet. Okay, so the sun rays, they're not completely different from the sun. The sun rays, each photon of light, it emanates heat and light, just like the sun. So it's true to say the sun's coming into my home, but the sun rays are not exactly like the sun either, right, in quantity. So we, the spirit soul, we're Satchitananda Vigraha. We're eternally full of bliss and knowledge, and our original form is spiritual, just like Krishna. So we're not completely different. There's important similarities, and we're not exactly the same. We're not exactly the same either in quantity, in various respects. In various respects. So, and then that difference, the one, the Achincha Beta Beta Tattva, the simultaneous oneness and difference, though the difference is bridged by love, by loving devotional service. So the Vaishnava oneness is we endeavor to become one in desire, not to artificially try to so-called merge and lose our identity and merge into the body of Krishna or something like that. Natvevaham jatuna samnatam name janadipana chevanam bhavishima sarvevayama tatparam. Krishna says, never was there a time when I did not exist, nor you, Arjuna, nor all these kings on the battlefield, nor in the future shall any of us cease to be. We're eternally spiritual individuals. And so by loving devotional service, and the way Krishna wants us to serve is through his pure devotee, is through his pure devotee. And that's the way, there's verses where Krishna says, one who sees himself as my devotee is not my devotee. One who sees himself as the servant of my devotee, that's my devotee. So we gave the analogy, just borrowing from Prabhupada again, that on Friday, it's like I can say, I want my eyes to have a direct relationship with the print in the book. Direct. It's all blurry, like nothing. Actually, I'm just getting rid of this. Like if I did this even a few years ago, I would read a few words. If I did this 30 years ago, I don't need these things. But anyhow, I don't want to get diverted too much. Nothing. So it is actually true to say that these glasses are in between my eyes and the book. In a sense, it makes it indirect. And the reality is, because they're finely crafted, these glasses, in a sense, it makes it indirect, or the indirect relationship, but these glasses enhance my direct relationship with the print. Similarly, so we endeavor to serve the divine couple, Sri Sri Radha Krishna through Srila Prabhupada. Oh, that's indirect. That enhances our direct relationship with the divine couple, with Sri Sri Radha Krishna. Okay. We can expand the analogy from glasses to, let's say, a high-powered, sophisticated telescope. Again, let's say I want a direct relationship between my eyes and the star. Not much there. But let's say a high-powered telescope with a whole series of finely crafted lenses. That you can say, oh, they're in the way between my eye and the star, but the series of finely crafted lenses, that enhances the direct relationship between my eye and the star. So the series of lenses, that's the Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, Srila Gaurkishore Das Babi, Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur, Srila Jagannath Das Babi. Okay, so that's the system. That's the system. And so this Divyagan Diksha is it's spiritual, which means by definition, it's not dependent on anything material, including proximity in the same room or in the same planet. And I'll just repeat again, some of you were here for the Friday discussion. So let's say my way of endeavoring to serve Srila Prabhupada, the Sanskrit term for that would be Siksha Guru. We can see that here in the verse, Shishya, disciple. So Arjuna, all right, so chapter 2, text 7, it's like a transitional text in Bhagavad Gita. Arjuna at that point says, Karpanya dosha patasva bhava prichami tvam dharma samuda cheta yatrayasyan nischita buhi tanme shishas teham sarimam tvam prapanam. Arjuna says, okay, now I'm clear that I'm confused about my duty and I've lost all composure due to weakness. In this condition, Krishna, I ask you, please tell me clearly what to do. I'm a conditioned soul. Now I'm your disciple. I'm surrendered unto you. Please instruct me. Please give me siksha, instructions. Shishasteham sadimam trampapa. And sadi, same word as sadhu. Sadhu actually means to cut through my illusion. Cut through my illusion that I'm doing fine. Now he's at that point, because till then, Arjuna was like, well, no, I have this argument, I have that argument, and actually this is right, and this is right. And it's like, I'm confused. I'm confused. I've lost my composure. I'm not doing fine. And then that's Arjuna's humility, and he knows who to approach. Krishna's pure representative. So to realize, like, I don't actually want to be in this prison house. It's not my sweet, divine Disneyland pastime. I'm suffering birth, death, old age, disease. I'm suffering this is related to miseries from my own mind every moment, and miseries from the body, and miseries from others, and miseries from eating, sleeping, mating, defending, and cheating. Okay, so that requires humility. Like, I'm suffering here. I'm suffering here, and I don't want. When Srila Sanatana Goswami, he really had it together in the material world. He was practically the prime minister of the state, very wealthy, young and attractive, and he was fluent in 6 languages and very influential. And then when he first approached, he's the eldest of the 6 Goswamis. And when he first approached Lord Chaitanya with a straw in his mouth, straw in the mouth indicating, I'm lower than the blade of grass. Trinada Pisunichena Toroyavasa Hishnuna Manina Manadina Kirtanya Sadahari. Lord Chaitanya says, when one feels oneself to be lower than the straw on the street and is more tolerant than a tree, ready to offer all respect to others, demanding no respect for oneself, in such a consciousness, in such a state of mind, one can blissfully do kirtan all the time, chanting, do service all the time, kirtanya sadahari. So Sanatan Goswami, he approaches Lord Chaitanya and says, Kami Kaniyamaya Jari Tapachaya. He says to Lord Chaitanya, people think I'm really something special and really great. And I'm such a fool that I believe them. I'm believing my own publicity. But the actual truth is, again, kind of emulating Arjuna, the actual truth is, I don't even know who I am. I do know that I'm suffering. I'm suffering the 3-fold miseries and the 4-fold miseries and the 7-fold miseries. I do know that I'm suffering. And so just as Arjuna approaches Krishna in that humble mood, Sanatan Goswami approaches Lord Chaitanya. Similarly, we get to approach Srila Prabhupada in that spirit, the spirit of service, humility. Humility means like, yeah, I'm being victimized by the material energy. Of course, I'm responsible for that. I've attached myself to these material attachments to this particular place on the machine of material energy. And I don't want to suffer. And then, so my role in attempting to serve Srila Prabhupada as a Siksha Guru is to endeavor to somehow or other, by my words, actions, example, to encourage, inspire others to establish, cultivate, and develop, strengthen, and expand and deepen your personal direct relationship with Srila Prabhupada as we can say Diksha Guru, as the main giver of Divya Gyan, the main giver of Diksha. Prabhupada equates Divya Gyan and Diksha. And so that's, for me, an important distinction, like not to be someone's link to Prabhupada, but to encourage someone to establish their direct personal living link with Srila Prabhupada. And that's what I endeavor to emulate. So our verse today, Text 38, Canto 3, Chapter 7, Pushasya cha samstanam svarupam va parasya cha gyanam cha naigamam yatad gurushishya prayojanam. What are the truths regarding the living entities and the Supreme Personality of Godhead? What are their identities? What are the specific values in the knowledge in the Vedas? And what are the necessities for the spiritual master and his disciples? Thanks for giving your power of hearing to Srimad Bhagavatam. Hare Krishna. I welcome questions or comments at this time.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Nandini. Hare Bol.
Thank you for this class. Well, many things came to me. And one is, so it says, to know the process of devotional service and to remain from mundane activities. So mundane activities, it's, sometimes I think it would be so easy to just live in a temple community, and then
Yeah.
it's very clear what devotional service is in my mind. I guess
Right.
maybe in
Yeah.
reality it wouldn't be so clear, but in my mind, I
Yeah.
sometimes think it would be so much easier.
Sure.
And I'm living in society, and I have a family, and I'm in contact with society, and I want to be, be that in a in a caring, compassionate way.
Yeah.
And then where do I see the distinction between mundane activity and devotional service? Like right now I'm outside in the garden.
Yeah.
So it could be seen as a mundane activity externally.
Mm.
Yet if I were, maybe right now because I'm listening to Srimad Bhagavatam and trying to understand and get something that helps me in my life,
Yeah.
it's devotional service, but it's like, there's so many activities where it's dependent on the consciousness.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's something I was thinking about. And that kind of relates to life is not meant for sense gratification.
Yeah.
There's so many things, almost everything I do is for sense gratification in a gross or subtle way. I want to feel comfortable, I want to be cared for, I want some attention, I want, that's
Yeah.
also sense gratification.
Right.
Or I want to maintain my belief systems, or whatever it is.
Right.
Hold on to my grunges, it's all sense gratification. So when is the change? When does it become devotional service? I was, thinking about that.
Yes.
And then something more,
Yeah.
one other thing. Well, two other things. One is, so you were speaking about the body. There's the body,
Yeah.
the gross body, and then there's feelings, thoughts, intelligence. And I seem to believe that I can identify this is a thought, this is a feeling, this is intelligence, is a little hard. Yet how do I experience false ego? And how does false ego relate to Maya? That's a question I have.
Okay. Thanks. There's a lot of interconnected philosophical personal themes. Let's see where we go with it. Thank you, Anandini. Yeah, so you're referring to the statement from Srila Prabhupada, to disseminate transcendental knowledge, one must retire from mundane activities on the strength of enlightenment and knowledge in terms of Vedic wisdom. I'm reminded, because again, we're in the third chapter of Bhagavad Gita. So is it text 6? Krishna says to Arjuna, don't be a mityachara. Mityachara means a false actor. Don't be a pretender. Don't be a pretender. Because like in one sense, Arjuna wants to retire from mundane activities and go to the forest and meditate. And then in the verse, in the purport, Krishna and Srila Prabhupada talk about like the so-called yogi meditating, retiring from the world, just thinking about sense gratification, and oh, now people think I'm a great yogi, or what's for lunch, or I hope someone gives me some donation, or whatever it is. So this mundane activities, it's not like as I know you're aware, it's not like understood in a shallow, superfluous sense. And you're right, like temple life can be easier in a sense. All of the devotional program, it's all devotional program, and now we do this, and now we read Ishopanishad, and now we go out on book distribution. And sometimes I've reflected, like here, let's call it in the Sappho transformative communication community, whatever. Not that everyone in the communities participate in Sappho courses, but a large majority have like that. So like for the most part, most everyone who comes to Bhakti Yoga, to Prabhupada, they're not like joining a temple. They're coming like they're in life, and they've got jobs and families, and they're in life. And so I know myself, whenever I had my years of taking prasad, and then I moved into a bhakti yoga ashram Renana, Israel. You know, I had my ashram years, many ashram years, and I'm very grateful for that. And and so in one sense, like, yeah, that's such a nice foundation. At the same time, so it's like, it's challenging to not have that, like, just 24 hours a day temple seminar structure. True. At the same time, what I found is, like, but then, like, you know, those in the community, yourself included, in rising to the challenge, there's a strength. Like, okay, here in my life, my household life, finances and insurance policies and children, the roof has to be fixed, or whatever it is. In the temple, there's managers for that too. But whatever it is, like, yeah, and dealing with relationships and all of that. Yeah, so then there's something strengthening, because, look, yeah, I need to, like, use my ingenuity to figure out a way to be in bhakti yoga, to be Krishna consciousness in the midst of this. I need to figure out a way how to, like, be in my garden and raise the children and earn the money in a way where it's not mundane, in a way where I'm dovetailing it in Krishna consciousness, and that requires, and it leads to a deep strength. Because I don't want to paint with too broad a brush, but I've seen many who maybe they are temple devotees, and it's, oh, that's a, and then when it's for whatever reason, then after a year or 10 years or whatever it is, then they leave the ashram, they leave the temple, and then, at least for some time, they just kind of flop, and they lose their practices, because just like the structure was there. What do I do now? Huh? Oh, I need to get a job, and then I don't have time to chant, and like that. So I've just seen many instances like that. I just want to give that perspective. There are pluses and challenges to temple and not being in a temple, and so mundane activities. That's it. You know, so it's like, you know, there's the verses, and 2 days ago I quoted the verse where Narada Muni speaks to Vyasadeva, idami pumsas tapasashu tasya, that all human activities, medicine, psychology, social work, education, economics, it's all Krishna's energy. And to the extent that we have realization how to use it in Krishna's service, there's the I think it's chapter 13 text in Bhagavad Gita, and Prabhupada says the family relationships, they're natural objects of affection. They're not to be artificially renounced. But let's have kirtan in the middle of the family relationship, the middle of our social gatherings. Let's do kirtan. Let's have it prasadam. Then the job. Then it's not mundane. Then it's not a mundane activity, because it's strengthened by enlightenment and knowledge in terms of Vedic wisdom. And to the extent that we're effective in that, then we're potent in disseminating transcendental knowledge, or more precisely, then we're potent in inspiring people to connect with Srila Prabhupada as their living current and direct link to the Parampara. So those are some principles and thoughts related to the first part of your sharing. I think I'll pause there for now.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm glad I'm not in a temple. I'm glad I didn't go through that path. I appreciate. I don't think I would be chanting or trusting Srila Prabhupada if I had. Well, I don't know, but what I see, well, hearing you share, I'm connecting it to humility. Like for me, it's right now. So I'm reading Bhaktivinoda Thakur's prayers,
Yeah.
Gopinath,
Gopinath,
and
yeah.
and he
Right.
describes the how he's driven by desires and making plans and wanting to control and the misery of all of that, and I find in the way I live my life, it's relatively easy to connect with that misery.
Yeah.
And at the same time, I and you were saying that's humility. Well,
It's
I
humility to acknowledge that yeah, I'm suffering. I'm enmeshed in a whole network and web of petty material desires. Go be not. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, and the combination is humility, right? The combination of I'm suffering, I admit, I'm not pretending I'm good, and I'm not trying to make the material misery good, and I'm surrendering.
yeah.
That's it's the
Yes.
combination which makes humility.
Thanks for that. Thanks for that.
So how does it go together with that this process of devotional service is joyfully performed? Like when I'm experiencing the misery, I'm not experiencing joy.
Okay. Yeah, how's that come together with Shushu Kam Kartum Avyayam? How's it together? Um, well, one thing I'll say as a preface, and um, I think I shared this on some class a few, or maybe it was, yeah. And this for, we played this song in the Safatov advanced seminar, Trinada P, and yes, we play that song. Trinada P Snichina Tori Vashishna Manina Manadina Kitana said we play that song twice. So that's rare, and because it's a song all about humility as it connects with surrender to chanting the names of God. And so for many years, I, like most who hear it, they can't quite understand what's the English lyrics. Those who know the Sanskrit can make out the Sanskrit. And so many years ago, I don't know, a decade ago, I traced down who's the composer and the author of that song, and his name is Ishan Gora Prabhu. And I tracked him down. It wasn't easy. And he sent me the lyrics, so the English lyrics. So I was very glad to receive that. And then and so we had some nice connection with various topics many years ago. Just internet connection, like email. But then, like 2 or 3 weeks ago, I got I got a letter from his wife. Her name is Linda or Lileshwari. And he wrote to me that Ishan Gora was like he's about to leave his body. Maybe by now he's left because that was too. He's about to leave his body, and somehow, um, he mentioned me, and he said that like Dhira Govinda is like he has a deep connection with my essential mission, and somehow he got that, and so she wrote to me, and she wrote that he was expressing that our connection around that song was so meaningful for him. She wrote a few other things. So I just, since you're mentioning that verse, and we do use that song in Safato, I thought to mention that. Probably he's left his body by now because she said any day, but um, so that song, and importantly, that the Kirtaniya Sadahari, the chanting 24 hours a day, chanting constantly, that comes after seeing oneself lower than the blade of grass, being more tolerant than a tree, ready to offer all respects, demanding no honor for myself. That comes so on that platform. Then there, because as long as we've got any attachment to pride and I want to be honored and not insulted, and I'm always going to be distracted from kirtan. So so in spiritual life, in the transcendental Goloka Vrindavan consciousness, yeah, there's all the emotions. There's transcendental low self-esteem. Krishna's Kaviraj Jagan Mare, Muni say, but Pista, Pushere, Hitoite Muni say Lagista. Krishna's Kaviraj Goswami is saying, I'm lower than Jagan Mare, I'm lower than the worms in stool. He's feeling that way. Srila Prabhupada in his poetry on the Jaladuta in Boston Harbor. He's saying, I have no knowledge and no devotion. He's Bhaktivedanta, but he's saying, he's actually feeling that. So it's just like, it's sad. And permeating and overarching the container, the very substratum of that sadness is profound spiritual joy, profound spiritual bliss. And that's because that emotion. Same when Bhaktivinoda Thakur is writing Gopinath, I'm drowning in an ocean of material desires. It's true for him. It's like Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami is truly feeling lower than the worm in stool. At the same time that those emotions, those transcendental sentiments are moving those pure devotees to deeper surrender, deeper dedication, deeper inspiration to serve Krishna, to serve their spiritual master, to serve Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. And so that's blissful. It's not, we discussed this yesterday towards the end of your class on Nandini. Maybe it was Friday during a discussion. It's not like put on a happy face or this. Okay, Mother Yashoda, she's so scared. Krishna's gonna get smashed by the tornado demon. She's so scared. Krishna's gonna get sick by eating dirt. And in that fear, in the anger with Krishna when he's still, it's blissful. We talked 2 days ago. We talked about Jesus. Okay, that's we can't imagine worse material miseries than having nails and crucifixion and like that. And so it's not like, but he was really happy. It's not like that sort of happy, but yeah, but because he's connected with serving God and he's like fully absorbed in his mission. That's bliss. And so to the extent that we're not fully absorbed in experiencing this suffering and this disturbance, this hellish disturbance, that's an impetus that's a perfect arrangement for me to, with intensity, to serve Krishna. To the extent that we're not connected with that part, then it's just empty torment. It's just suffering. To the extent we're connected there, then the emotion, the ghastly emotion, it's permeated by spiritual bliss. So when, to the extent the surrender is there, then there's that spiritual richness and fulfillment, and whatever the emotion or thoughts might be. Does that begin to respond to your question?
Yeah, what I'm getting is that, that misery, there is real misery. It's experiencing misery doesn't necessarily mean I am in a grungy place. It could also be authentic. And then to make the best of the misery is to use it as an engine or a motivation to take shelter in transcendental knowledge and devotional service.
Yeah, and to the extent that I take shelter in transcendental knowledge and devotional service, then I'm not going to use the word happy, but I'm experiencing a rich, profound fulfillment of the soul, of the soul living its most sublime purpose.
Mm. And so I'm relating that back to Arjuna, who is experiencing intense misery at the beginning of the battle, and he wants to do devotional service in the forest.
Yeah.
That's more attractive. And then, because fighting would maybe be a mundane activity in that moment, that's his consciousness. And then he receives a transformation, and he realizes, no, actually, what looks mundane is devotional service. When he's surrendering to it and offering all the results to Krishna.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I'm resonating with your understanding. Let's say if we take it further, okay, so then when Judas surrenders, so then he's in that fulfilled, rich place but then he's doing the fight, as the Bhagavad Gita ends and Mahabharata goes on, and he's connected with fierce anger. Well, that's anger. That's not happiness, but it's a deep fulfillment. Arjuna loses. Yes, he loses his. He loses his son, and so many people get killed. Yes, and and so it's intense grief and sadness, and it's all in service to Krishna. So it's permeated by ever blissful spiritual Ras.
That's so far out for me to grasp. Even after, after the battle, and they are so sad
Yeah,
because so many died.
yeah,
When they're doing the rituals and the burial, not the burial, I don't know how to call it.
yeah. The
Yeah,
funeral.
the
Yeah,
funeral, and they're in great real grief.
yeah. Real grief. Yeah, real grief.
Yeah. Thank you. This is all very helpful for me.
Okay, thanks for sharing.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. I think on Friday, me or someone, we gave the example, or maybe you gave the example. And, yeah, let's say like in some of our courses, there might be, say, like an anger catharsis, right? So it's one thing to have like grungy anger and then shadow resentments. Ugh. But then, okay, but then someone's like connecting with anger and fierceness and releasing it and expressing it. Well, it's anger. And it's permeated by joy. I'm not saying necessarily a transcendental joy, but we're moving towards sattva. Sattva doesn't necessarily mean or look like oh shanti shanti. Sattva means an expanded range of choice, meaning I'm able to connect at will with shanti shanti shanti. I'm able to connect at will with fierce anger, and it's all that sattvic happiness underlying everything.
Yes, and in anger release, I'm not killing anyone. Arjuna is on the bat. Yeah, but that's his
Yeah,
duty.
that's his duty. Yeah. Well, it's just
Yeah.
taking examples, and then we can expand the example, expand the principle.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Hare Krishna. Anything else at this time? Bhakti and Rosa.
Over the last several days in exploring this text, many topics have come up. At some point, you said something along the lines of you can't know what's in someone's heart,
Yeah.
and I don't want to misquote you because it'll be something like, and you don't care to know what's in their heart, like it's not.
It's not my business, not my service.
Exactly. Okay. And then today you're talking about distinctions. We're talking about disciples and spiritual masters.
Yeah.
I'm trying to connect several concepts. So, being humbler than the blade of grass and being more tolerant than the tree. I understand it's not my service to know what's in someone's heart.
Right.
However, in endeavoring for positive association, or for example, in seeking mentorship or spiritual guidance, there's something to distinguish there.
Yeah.
Maybe it isn't what's in a person's heart, but there's something, and I'm trying to understand when and where is my place to do that.
Thank you, Bhakti and Rosa. I appreciate your question. And in your question, I hear intelligent response to your question. And in your question itself, there's such potent distinctions. Right. So that's it. So it's not my service to know what's in someone's heart. It is my service to notice what I'm noticing about behaviors, words. What's someone speaking? What are those words? How someone's acting, And based on that, it is important service to make distinctions about how I associate with them. So let's say there's someone drunk on the street and just making these kind of like violent, vulgar, drunk on the street. So I'm clear, like I'm keeping a distance. Now, I don't know, maybe in his heart, maybe this person is so connected with God and he's enacting a divine pastime that's beyond my comprehension. Uh, Whatever, or it doesn't material. I can understand maybe what's happening because he's in so much pain and that's why he's hurting others and making whatever. I don't know what's in his heart. I do know, based on the behaviors I see and based on my relationship with life purpose, I'm keeping a distance. But you know, sometimes why don't you go? Why don't you go and ask him advice on how to live your life? Uh, no. I'm making distinctions about association and boundaries without being the judge of what's in someone's heart. So that's an important distinction. And similarly, that's like an extreme example, kind of easy to understand. But similarly, that's why it's important to like read Prabhupada's books, hear Bhagavatam in forums like this, right? So we're able to make distinctions. Otherwise, someone make distinction. Oh, that was very nice. That was a very nice lecture, and it was a very nice lecture. And he said that actually life is butterflies and rainbows and multicolored unicorns. It's just a matter of realizing that you're God. And everyone in the room was smiling, and I felt good. I felt good. Yeah. Oh, okay. But then we need to make distinctions. Okay. So then how come I'm struggling with digestive problems if I'm God? How come I'm not able to find my car keys at least twice per week if I'm good? So we need to like use our intelligence to make distinctions. Like, yeah, that's why Lord Chaitanya says, yeah, let's be cautious of, even if someone's speaking genuine impersonal philosophy, how to associate. Now, yeah, like there's Shankaracharya, he completely spoke, in a sense, non-Vedic impersonal philosophy. But it would be wrong for me to judge. He's actually an empowered representative of Krishna, and he was doing it for a reason. Like he was actually a partial incarnation of Lord Shiva. So I don't judge what's in someone's heart, but I want to make distinctions about what they're saying and how they're acting, based on, not from a judgmental place, like I'm better, you're, but my reference point is Srila Prabhupada's Siddhanta. Siddhanta means the conclusion of Srila Prabhupada's teachings. And based on that, and based on my goal of self-realization and developing Krishna consciousness and developing purity of heart, um, and developing more and more potency to be a touchstone for Krishna conscious transformation. Based on that, yeah, I want to be able to make distinctions such that I associate appropriately in a way that's a win-win for everyone.
Thank you. And to build on the subtlety, I appreciate what you mentioned about maybe being in an association and then, yeah, I feel good.
Yeah.
Everything's rainbows and butterflies and something about a subtlety of understanding your own temperament and what you may have a tendency to be attracted to.
Yeah.
And distinguishing that from experiencing truth.
Yeah, thanks for that. Yeah.
And so I wonder mostly about that distinguishment as I endeavor to find association and mentorship. I'm constantly asking myself, why am I attracted? Is it something about me? Am I like create some kind of self-fulfilling prophecy,
Yeah,
or
yeah.
some kind of circular thing where I'm going to prove myself right about something, and I don't know how to answer that question except that it's I feel like the answer is in surrender, but then there's a worry in me that in surrender I'm giving into my tendencies rather than a real surrender.
Thanks for that. Again, I appreciate the sincerity and intelligence of your questions. There's a well-known verse in Bhagavad Gita, Tesam satata yuktanam bhajatam paripurvakam dadami buddhiyogam tam yena mam upiyanti te Krishna says, to one who's sincere, I give the intelligence by which they can come to me. So I'm hearing intelligence and sincerity in your questions. Those, because because like, yeah, like something really resonates with me, or yes, but then it gets into what does this mean? And to what extent is this mean? That relates to part of Anandini's questions that we didn't directly address yet. You know, what does this mean? Am I, because like, let's say someone's philosophy is, yeah, like, no, to be happy, you should live a free life, no restrictions. So just whenever you feel an urge, go to the refrigerator. Whenever you feel it. So, oh yeah, that makes so much sense. That makes so much sense. And then it's appealing to me. I like it. It's like it's resonating. It's resonating with my tongue in my belly. And to the extent that I think I am my tongue in my belly, or someone else might have a philosophy that, oh yeah, that is so, because it resonates, because someone's identifying with their genitals, or someone's identifying with a political philosophy they picked up when they were 18 years old. And like, oh, that's me. Okay, like that. So that gets into what's the body. Okay. Do what you feel. Well, that's true. If I realize that I'm spirit soul, just do what you feel, because all the spirit soul feels like doing is serving Krishna and serving Srila Prabhupada. But if I'm thinking that I'm my body and mind, or false ego, or material intelligence, then do what I feel will get me into trouble, and it won't support me in advancement. So I appreciate your question, because someone can be speaking something and it resonates with me, or yeah, like that. But is it just like, oh, because it's attractive, because by following that, and it's all one, and I am you and you are me, we are all together. Yeah, like that. Okay, it's spiritual. I get to be spiritual, and God's not in the equation. And what's really great is surrender to God's not in the equation. And what's really like even greater, surrendering to this person, Krishna, is not in the equation, but we still get to be spiritual. So in the name of spirituality, I'm actually surrendering to my false ego that doesn't want to surrender to Krishna. So that requires subtle distinctions. What part is attracted? Material senses, material mind, material intellect, material false ego, or the actual spirit soul who wants truth. And actually, by definition, we're conditioned souls, which means we're conditioned to untruth. We're conditioned to the fundamental untruth that I'm this body. And so by definition, to really surrender to truth means I'm going to need to do some austerity, means I'm going to need to give up what feels good for a body, material mind, material intellect, material false ego. For most of us, we don't want to do that too abruptly. There's the analogy of the reins. Prabhupada describes it in the 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, the reins of the horse. If we give up too much indulgence in material body or mental, if we do too much that we're not ready for, then the horses won't cooperate in taking us to our goal. But yeah, so to really surrender to that which is truth in the absolute sense, Krishna, devotional service. This is the substratum of all existence, that which is true and good and beautiful in all time and space. To surrender to that almost surely means doing some austerity, because I could. And I just surrendered, and I just slept till 10 a.m. I slept till noon. What am I surrendering to? Okay, well, I'm surrendering to, I like to sleep, mode of ignorance. Okay, there's a part of me that, mode of ignorance. Oh, but okay, I surrendered to actually truth, the soul. So I get up at 3:30 a.m. It's an austerity. It's an austerity to use these hours. But then that's surrendering to the truth of the soul and super soul. Thanks for your questions. Hare Krishna. Okay.
Hare Krishna, dear Govinda, just one. In that example you just gave,
Yeah.
what would be the false ego? Like I get intelligence is kind of, am I deciding to follow the, what my mind says will bring me pleasure? That would be intelligence. And what would be the false ego part? How would I recognize that?
Okay, well, yeah, okay. Well, okay, where my mind's going on Andini is just generally because your question about false ego. So we can go to that example, but just what's alive for me. There's okay, I just have a personal example, a personal example. And so I have a situation in my life now. A personal example relate to distinctions. There's the gross body, there's material mind, there's material intellect, there's material false ego. So you're like, what's that false ego distinction? So I have a situation in my life, I mean, ongoing, but like intensified, where in a particular situation or attempted service, I'm getting a reasonably large quantity of honor and praise, and I'm getting a reasonably intensive large quantity of insult and criticism and vilification. Okay, so and I'm just saying that this is alive for me, so I can see. For me, that's not about my physical body or my mind or intelligence. That's about my ego. And like it's gonna feel like, oh, I like being honored. Yeah, it is good. Yeah, people people are appreciating me and my courage and my service. Okay, like that. So it's just like I'm caring about the honor. That's my false ego. And people who are my friends now they're insulting me, and they're saying terrible things about me and my character and like that. So I'm just that's like something alive for me. Like, and to whatever extent I care about that honor and insult and dishonor and praise and infamy and appreciation, rather than just like I'm enthusiastic to do the service for Prabhupada. To what extent I care about the honor and like that's my false ego. So that's just what's coming to me personally.
Okay, thank you. So is it the emotional attachment to expectation? Does that relate to false
Yes,
ego?
yes.
And that, yeah. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.
Yeah.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhu. Hari Bol.